Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. Gigabyte's gaming K7 X370 motherboard. No, your ears don't deceive you. Yes, this is June of 2018 when I'm recording this video, and yes, the 400 series boards are out. But wait, don't run off just yet. This is still worth considering because it is a great value for the money. Why is that, you ask? $159. Now, before you run to the comment section and say, wait a minute, that Gigabyte X470 board is $139 and thus it's $20 less, you have to remember that's the entry-level board, not the Gaming 7. The Gaming 7 is $229. That is quite a bit more expensive than the $159 of this board. This board in front of me right here for $159 has a lot of features on it. Dual Realtek ALC 1220 audio chips, Sound Blaster software support. It has dual BIOSes, a hardware reset switch, power switch, and CMOS clear switch right on the board. Diagnostic LEDs, an entire board full of RGB LEDs, far more than that board has. You have to go up to the 7 to get it. And dual gigabit Ethernet. Not even the X470 Gaming 7 has dual gigabit Ethernet. They actually removed that feature from the 400 series board. So before you think that the 300 series is immediately obsolete, let me introduce you to the Gaming K7, an altogether really good value considering what's on this board. Now in this video, I'm going to take it out of the box. We're going to do a tour close-up of the board. I'll show you around it, show you some of its features. 8 fan headers. Really, and they're hybrid, so they all work for anything. Water pumps, CPU fans, case fans, all sorts of things. It really is versatile. Do I sound excited? For $159, I actually am. Sitting right here is another good deal in June of 2018, Ryzen 7 1700. This is currently $199 on the day I'm filming this video. Prices vary. All of this will be linked down in the video description below to both Amazon and Newegg. Do check and compare prices. But at this price, this is an unbeatable deal. 8 cores, 16 threads, Wraith Spire RGB cooler included in the box. This will do 3.7 gigahertz on all 8 cores using the included cooler, and it has no problem running on a board like this. Actually, you don't even need this much of a board to do 3.7. If you want to go higher, if you want to spend $40 more and get an 1800X, which will do 4 gigahertz on all the cores with a high-end cooler, this board will do it, which the B350s won't. I don't recommend it. I don't think it's the value for the money I think this is, but it will do it if the 1800X is something that you want to do. You can also put the 2700 and 2700X on this board with an appropriate BIOS update. Now, if you go buy a brand new one of these, it should have the proper BIOS support out of the box at this point. The inventory should have cycled through because any BIOS within the past 6 months or so should support it. Launch BIOSes didn't last year, but they do now. That's entirely enough talking. Let's move the CPU out of the way and show you inside this. I have not used this board in a build. I will shortly. I am tempted to use it for that because, frankly, nice board. Open it up inside and you find a motherboard in a box. I know, it's exciting. We'll take this out and the cardboard insert. This is gorgeous. This is the I/O shield. It is padded on the back for full insulation and a good fit. It is a very, very reflective, shiny surface. It is actually etched with all the names of the ports. It really looks nice. It might be a minor thing. No, it doesn't really make the board faster, but it's very pretty. 4 SATA data cables for your hard drives or SSDs. I'd expect nothing less for a board at this price point. Oris branded Velcro straps. Not a huge thing, but very nice. Cable management, because they're Velcro, you can attach them, disconnect them, reattach them. What I'd use these for is for like securing the PCI Express power cables for your video card, which you might attach or remove, or another cable that you might actually have to move in the future. Who doesn't like stickers? It's a nice touch. These basically wrap around cables. They're labeled for SSDs, hard drives, and other things. If you've got, for example, a SATA data cable running through the back of your case in cable management, and you've got 3 of them and they all look the same, this lets you label them so when you're looking at them in your case, you know what they are. Thermal temperature probe. There are 9 temperature probes on this board. If you are a serious overclocker, if you want to skip the 1700 and go to the 1800X, if you want to put a 280 millimeter liquid cooler or a huge tower cooler and you want to overclock this to the max, you're looking at the right place. Better power delivery, 9 temperature sensors, and an external sensor that you can use. You can read it with the app, you can read it in Windows and the Gigabyte software, or in the BIOS and set various parameters for it. If you're buying a premium board, it should come with an NVIDIA high-speed SLI connector board, which it does, multilingual quick installation guide, and we have a second temperature sensor. 2 of the 9 temperature sensors are actually the external ports, and it does come with both cables, so 7 on the board and 2 external. It comes with a very nice Gigabyte branded coaster for your drinks and for your, oh, wait a minute. No, this is a driver CD, which none of you are going to use because you're going to download the latest drivers from Gigabyte. RGB cables galore. I love these things. Gigabyte does these right. This is the front panel connector. Take your front panel connectors, plug them into the top of this. It's got little clips to hold them in place. That's very nice as a diagram to show you. And then you put the whole thing on the board. It makes installing it so much easier. And finally, we have the Gigabyte user guide, which isn't huge, but this is all in English. It's not multiple languages, and it does cover all the various ports and the pin layouts on the board and a few basic things with the BIOS. Always nice to have. Now that's everything in the box. Let's take a look at the board. First impressions from looking at this board, it is $60 more expensive than the Gaming 3 B350 board, which is $99 from Gigabyte, and I can see where they put the money. It is a quality board. You could just tell by feeling it. It's heavier. It's got a heatsink up top, which the Gaming 3 for $99 doesn't. It does have more components on it. It has a whole lot more RGB on it. If you're building a system above $1,000, I think this might be worth considering if you want the extra features, the dual sound, the LAN, the RGB. If you don't care about those things, there is nothing wrong with the Gaming 3, the B350 board. Just be aware this has a better power delivery system, so for future upgrades, that's perhaps one of its strongest points. And rather than try to point features out while holding the board, I'm going to go full screen here. I'm going to put boxes around everything, and we're going to show you this awesome board. Here you can see the top of the board. On the upper left-hand corner, we have the 8-pin CPU power connector, nicely nestled between the 2 heat sinks. You've got the main CPU socket right in the center. Now, the standard clips for using the older AM3 style connectors come on the board, but unscrew the 4 screws and you can put the Wraithspire RGB cooler right on there. Moving over to the right, you can see 2 CPU fan connectors. I mentioned there are 8 on this board. These are 2 that you're probably going to use for, of course, the CPU fan itself and possibly a top case fan, unless you have a liquid cooler. Moving all the way over to the right, you can see the power switch and the reset switch that are right on the board. These are very handy if, for example, you've either got this on a test bench or you haven't gotten everything hooked up yet and you're configuring things, or you just have a problem with your case and you just want to reset the power or turn it on and off from the motherboard itself. Then you can see the top half of the RGB light strip that is on this side that is right next to the 24-pin ATX power connector. And then finally, I want to draw your attention to the power delivery system. This has a much better power delivery system than the B350 boards do. One of the big things you're getting when you spend $160 versus $100 for the Gaming 3 B350 that I've reviewed previously is the fact that this has a much more robust power delivery. If you want to overclock, if you want 4+ gigahertz, if you want to put a liquid cooler or a large tower cooler on this, this is definitely the board to buy. For 3.7 or stock running, it makes zero difference whatsoever, but for serious overclocking, get at least a power delivery system similar to this one. We are now going to move the board down a bit so that you can see the 2 USB 3.0 headers on the right side of the board. I love the fact that it has 2 of these. If you've got a front panel case that has 4 USB 3 connectors, this board's got you covered. You can see 2 more fan connectors directly above those, and then the bottom of the RGB lighting strip right there. Moving towards the center of the board, we can see the main PCI Express X16 connector for your graphics card. Directly beneath that, we can see the M.2 slot. That's where you're going to put your NVMe SSD if you want to install one, a Samsung 970 EVO or an ADATA SX8200 or something similar. And then as we move the board down, you can see the rest of the PCI Express slots. There are 3 X16 slots in total, although they're not wired for X16, and then the 3 PCI Express 1X slots, which frankly a lot of people will probably never use, but they're there if you want to add a sound card or an additional interface card. On the right-hand side, you can see the big Gigabyte Aorus logo. There's a ton of RGB on this board. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can see on the very right-hand side the various SATA ports for the serial ATA connectors for hard drives or SSDs. Down at the bottom, there are 3 more fans. There are so many fan connectors on this case. It should have on this board. It should have you covered for just about anything. The front panel connectors are on the bottom right. A 2-digit LED diagnostic readout is here. If you're serious about overclocking, skip the cheap boards. Get a board with this, because if you're trying to figure out what problems you're having, this is so handy to have when doing overclocking diagnostics. 2 USB 2.0 headers. Then there's a TPM connector, which I doubt any of you are going to use, followed by one of the 2 RGB headers on the board. Next to that are 2 very important switches, a slow boot switch and the BIOS switch. This board has dual BIOSes, so if you have a problem with a BIOS update or anything else, you can revert back to the backup BIOS, boot up into the BIOS, switch it over, and then attempt to flash the main BIOS again, so you should never be locked out of the board. Then you can see the HD audio for the front panel audio connectors next to that. Above that is the integrated audio solution on the board. Moving to the back panel I/O shield, we have a dual PS2 keyboard mouse port if you have a device that needs either one of those. There are a whole slew of USB ports back here. The 4 that are in blue are USB 3.1 Gen 1 5 gigabit per second ports. The 2 yellow ports are also USB 3.1 Gen 1 5 gigabit per second ports, but they're also designed for the input of an audio DAC. In other words, if you have an external USB audio digital to analog converter, plug them in there because they're designed to have a cleaner signal and timings or whatever it is they need for that. Now there are 4 USB 3.1 Gen 2 10 gigabit per second ports. There are 3 Type A ports, and there is 1 Type C reversible port. Then we have an HDMI 2.0 out port for video, but that's only going to be usable if you're putting an APU on this board, such as the Ryzen 5 2400G, which you really shouldn't be on this board, but you could. And then we have dual gigabit Ethernet. One of these is the Intel, and one of these is the killer, the E2500. These do not support teaming, but it does have dual gigabit. And then we have our HD 7.1 audio solution provided by the Realtek ALC 1220 audio chip on the board. One really big point I want to be very clear about. There is no performance difference between the X370 and the X470 series boards. They are feature and chipset differences, and frankly, they're pretty minor at that. It is a minor iteration. The real change is in the memory controllers on the Ryzen 2 chips. They are a little bit better, and you'll get about 1 notch higher on RAM support. If DDR4 3000 works really well on, say, a Ryzen 7 1700, then DDR4 3200 will work really well on the Ryzen 7 2700. And it actually doesn't matter whether you have a 300 or 400 series chipset, because the memory controller is all on the CPU. Now, your mileage will vary, and I've had 3200 work fine on some of the first gen Ryzens, and not on others, it depends. But the real world performance difference between 3000 and 3200 is meaningless, absolutely meaningless. It's barely measurable in benchmarks, and you will never ever notice it in real life for the sort of things you're going to do with this level of computer. If you truly care about that level of performance, you're probably on Threadripper or Skylake X anyway, so DDR4 3000 is currently the sweet spot for price to performance, and it's what I recommend and what I priced in my recent Ryzen 7 1700 build. In any case, hope you like this video. Like this video if you like it. Share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with that big, huge red button directly below. Questions and comments in the comment section. That's what it's for. And then check the links in the video description. Links to everything I talked about here in this video to Amazon and Newegg are down there. Those are affiliate links. They do support the channel. I greatly appreciate it if you use those while shopping. It really does help. Also, links to Discord, Twitch, Twitter, and a bunch of other stuff will be down there as well. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in my next video.